Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're tackling a really foundational text, something that shaped thought for, well, millennia. The first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita.
Yes, and we've gone through quite a bit of material for you, various talks, from spiritual teachers on YouTube, plus insights from classical commentaries like Sri Sankaracharya's work, really trying to get a rounded view.
Exactly. So our mission, really, is to pull out the core ideas from these early chapters.
Mm-hmm. To give you a clear, hopefully engaging overview of the Gita's starting point, we want to find those aha moments, understand the main messages, but, without getting completely overwhelmed by all the detail.
Right, because there is a lot there. But by looking at these different sources, these lectures and commentaries, we're hoping to offer a more accessible path into it. So where does this journey begin in the text itself?
Well, chapter 1, it just throws us straight into this intense situation. You've got Arjuna, the great warrior, right there on the battlefield.
But he's looking across and seeing, well, his family, isn't he? Teachers, cousins, elders he respects.
Exactly. And he's faced with the horrifying prospect of having to fight them, possibly kill them.
And the transcripts we looked at, they really capture his deep emotional crisis. It's not just battle strategy he's worried about.
No, not at all. He's completely torn apart. He talks about the immense sorrow this will cause, the feeling that it's fundamentally wrong, the sin involved. He sees himself becoming a killer, bringing about these deeply unpleasant consequences.
He's really wrestling with the morality of it. And not just his personal failings, right? He's worried about something bigger.
Absolutely. His concern runs deeper. He's thinking about the impact on society, the potential destruction of family lines, the traditions, the social order, what he understands as dharma or righteous conduct. What happens if that collapses because of this war?
So chapter 1 basically sets up this huge existential problem for Arjuna. His profound questions about duty, action, consequences.
Precisely. And that crisis is the perfect launching pad for everything that follows. Starting right in chapter 2, where Krishna begins to unfold the Gita's core teachings, the focus shifts dramatically.
From the immediate battlefield crisis to, well, the nature of reality itself.
Exactly, to timeless truths about the self, the Atman. This is where things get really profound.
Okay, so what's the first big idea here?
The central teaching is about the eternal nature of the self, the Atman. Krishna explains that this core essence, who you really are, was never born and it never dies.
Wow. So completely beyond the physical body.
Right. It's described as imperishable, unchanging. It persists through all the body's changes, childhood, youth, old age, even death.
I remember that analogy from the sources, like discarding old clothes for new ones. The body changes, but the wearer remains.
That's the one. It's a powerful image. The sources really stress the imperishable nature of the Atman, something indestructible by nature, the very consciousness by which all this is pervaded.
That really makes you stop and think, doesn't it, about what we identify with. If our true self isn't this temporary body, how does that change how we view things like, well, fear or desire?
That's a fundamental point. Understanding the Atman's eternal nature helps lessen our attachment to fleeting things, fear of death, craving for temporary pleasures. It shifts your focus to something deeper, unchanging.
Okay. And this connects to action, right? How we act in the world.
Yes, directly. It leads into the concept of karma phala, the fruits or results of our actions. And here we get that very famous verse, maphaleshu kada chana.
Ah, yes. Often quoted. What's the core message there?
It essentially means your right is to perform your duty, to act, but you don't have a right to or shouldn't be attached to the specific outcome or fruit of that action.
Okay, let's unpack that a bit. It doesn't mean don't care about the results, does it? More like don't let the desire for a specific result be your sole motivation.
Precisely. It's about focusing on performing the action itself, your duty, to the best of your ability with the right intention, without being mentally hooked on whether you get exactly what you want from it. Because often the results aren't entirely in our control anyway.
Right, that makes sense. Frees up your mind, in a way.
It does. And this attitude fosters what the Gita calls samatvam, equanimity.
Samatvam, like balance.
Yes, a sameness of the mind, as one text put it, being equally prepared for defeat and success. Maintaining mental equilibrium regardless of whether things go your way or not, this balance is key for spiritual growth.
And this is where yoga comes in, but maybe not just the physical postures people think of.
Exactly. In this context, yoga is defined as yoga karmasu kushalam, skill in action.
Skill in action. How so?
It means Performing your duties skillfully, efficiently, but also with that detached, balanced mindset. It's a very practical application of yoga.
Interesting. So chapter 2 lays down this foundation, the eternal self, acting without attachment, maintaining equanimity.
Yeah.
Anything else key in this chapter?
One more crucial distinction between sat and asat.
Sat and asat.
Sat is the real, the unchanging, the eternal, like the Atman. Asat is the unreal, the temporary, the constantly changing world of forms and experiences. The Gita emphasizes knowing the difference and grounding yourself in the real.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot just in chapter 2. So understanding the eternal self and the need for detached action leads us logically into chapter 3, which focuses on karma yoga, right? The path of action.
That's right. And the key insight here, especially from the lecture sources, is that karma yoga isn't necessarily about becoming a monk or leaving society.
So it's not about renouncing the world physically.
Not necessarily. It's more about transforming our day-to-day life into worship through a change of attitude. It's an internal shift.
A change in attitude.
Yeah.
So how you approach what you do.
Exactly. You take your ordinary actions, your duties, your work, whatever it is, and you perform them with a different inner disposition.
Making everyday life a spiritual practice just by changing how you think about it, that sounds accessible.
It is, potentially. The Gita introduces the idea of performing actions as a yajna.
Yajna, like a sacrifice or an offering.
Yes, precisely. Performing your actions as an offering to the divine, or for the welfare of the whole, without selfish motives attached. Think about doing your job not just for the paycheck, but with a sense of contribution, of dedication. The sources talk about perform activity, making an offering to God, acting in the spirit of offering.
And if you don't act in that spirit,
Then, the Gita says, those actions bind you. One commentary notes, action performed in the spirit other than yajna binds you. It's the ego, the attachment, the I want this result for me that creates karmic knots.
I see. So acting selflessly as an offering untangles those knots.
That's the idea. Chapter 3 also touches on the interconnectedness of everything, how society functions smoothly when everyone performs their duties appropriately, mentioning different societal roles based on natural inclinations, and it hints at a progression.
A progression.
Yeah, that a life of dedicated action, karma yoga, prepares the mind, purifies it, and eventually leads to a readiness for deeper contemplation, for jnana yoga, the path of knowledge, or even sannyasa, formal renunciation.
Okay, that makes sense. Karma yoga clears the ground, so to speak. Which brings us neatly to chapter 4, jnana yoga, the path of knowledge itself.
Exactly. And the text suggests that this desire for knowledge has to arise when the mind becomes mature through karma yoga.
So the selfless action actually makes you ready, makes you receptive to deeper wisdom.
That's the connection. As the mind gets purified through detached action, it gains the capacity and the longing for understanding the deeper truths.
And what does chapter 4 say is crucial for gaining this liberating knowledge?
It really emphasizes the renunciation of the fruits of action, which we saw in karma yoga, but it goes further, even renouncing the sense of being the doer.
Renouncing the sense of doership, like realizing I am not the one ultimately doing this.
Yes. Understanding that actions happen through the interplay of nature's qualities, gunas, and the true self is just the witness. This renunciation gives freedom, a leisure of the mind, as one source puts it. It frees you from the burden of feeling solely responsible for everything.
And this understanding, this knowledge, it's not just theoretical, is it?
No, it's transformative. The sources state clearly that actions do not bind the one who is established in knowledge and free from attachment. Knowledge literally burns away past karma and prevents future bondage. And crucially, all the doubts are removed by virtue of the knowledge. It dispels the ignorance that underlies suffering.
So knowledge is like the ultimate purifier.
In a sense, yes. Chapter 4 also brings up different kinds of sacrifices or dedicated practices that lead to knowledge, all seen as born of action in the world, but ultimately aimed at realizing the self which is beyond action.
And wasn't there something about seeing action and inaction differently?
Yes. The idea of seeing inaction in action and action in inaction, it's a bit paradoxical.
How does that work?
A wise person understands that even amidst intense activity, the true self remains uninvolved, inactive. And conversely, even in apparent stillness or non-activity, the forces of nature are always operating. Think of, say, a skilled musician lost in playing immense activity, but perhaps a deep inner stillness, a sense of flow where the doer disappears.
I think I get that. A detachment even within action. Okay, so we have the eternal self, selfless action, the dawn of knowledge. Now, chapter 5, Karma Sannyasa Yoga, seems to tackle a potential point of confusion, right? Action versus renunciation.
Exactly. It addresses the apparent conflict. Should I act karma yoga, or should I renounce action, karma sannyasa?
So what's the resolution?
The Gita clarifies that true sannyasa, true renunciation, isn't necessarily about stopping all activity in the world. It's primarily an internal renunciation,
Internal, meaning?
meaning giving up attachment and the sense of doership, even if you are still engaged in activities. You renounce the karma, as one text says, meaning you renounce the attachment to action and its fruits and the identification with being the performer. It's a renunciation of all the karma, all the engagements and duties in terms of ego involvement.
So you can be active in the world, but internally renunciate.
That's the higher understanding presented, and karma yoga is shown as the preparation for this. It purifies the mind, leading to the capacity for jnana yoga and eventual liberation. Selfless action clears the way for wisdom.
And what's the state of someone who achieves this?
Chapter 5 describes the liberated person, the yogi, who acts without being bound by karma because they constantly abide in the awareness of the self as the non-doer. They think, I am doing nothing, no matter what he sees, hears, touches, smells, eats. It's a profound shift in identification.
That state of realizing I am doing nothing, even while acting. That sounds like it would require immense mental discipline.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
Which leads us perfectly into Chapter 6, Jnana Yoga, the yoga of meditation.
So this is where the specific practice comes in.
Yes. Meditation is presented here as the key practice for gaining mastery over the mind, controlling its fluctuations, and directly realizing the self.
And self-control is a big theme here too, right? Atma yoga.
Huge. Self-control is essential to steer the mind away from harmful paths, distractions, desires that pull you away from your center. This control arises from viveka, discrimination, understanding what I want, what I do not work, meaning what truly serves your higher goal versus what just feeds temporary desires.
So you need that discipline to even sit for meditation effectively.
Absolutely. The goal is to cultivate a mind that is centered on the self, steady and undisturbed, so you can abide in your true nature. Meditation is the tool for achieving that centeredness.
And what's the result of that deep meditation according to this chapter?
It leads to the ultimate yogic vision, seeing the self in all beings and all beings in the self, a profound experience of unity and interconnectedness.
That sounds incredible. But the Gita is realistic about how hard this is, isn't it? Controlling the mind.
Oh, definitely. Arjuna himself complains about how restless and difficult to control the mind is, comparing it to controlling the wind.
Yeah, that feels relatable. So what's Krishna's answer? Is it hopeless?
Not at all. Krishna acknowledges the difficulty, but affirms that it is possible. How? Through practice and detachment. Consistent, dedicated practice abhyasa of meditation and cultivating non-attachment viraja towards worldly desires and distractions. Those are the two pillars.
Practice and detachment. Okay. So looking back at these first 6 chapters, we've covered a huge amount of ground.
We really have. From Arjuna's initial despair and confusion on the battlefield,
To understanding the eternal nature of the self, beyond birth and death.
then the path of selfless action, karma yoga, transforming work into worship.
Which prepares the mind for jnana yoga, the path of liberating knowledge.
Clarifying true renunciation as an inner state, not just outer withdrawal.
And finally, culminating in dhyana yoga, the actual practice of meditation to control the mind and realize that ultimate unity.
Exactly. It's really a progressive unfolding. The Gita, right from the start, provides this comprehensive framework for understanding who we are and how to navigate life towards freedom from suffering. It's about knowing your true nature and acting from that understanding with the right attitude.
It's incredibly profound. This has been a fascinating deep dive into these foundational chapters. And for you listening in, maybe pause and consider, how might these principles resonate in your own life?
Yeah, think about that idea of the eternal self, or the practice of selfless action, or even just the need for inner discipline. Could approaching things with a bit more detachment, focusing on the action itself rather than just the outcome, bring more clarity or less overwhelm to your daily life?
It's definitely food for thought. And of course, this is just the first third of the Gita. We really encourage you to explore the remaining chapters to see how these ideas develop even further.
Absolutely. There's so much more depth to uncover.
Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Bhagavad Gita's opening wisdom.